All right, so welcome everybody. We're going to get started. Gina, I don't know if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and I'll talk about some of the goals for today.
It sounds great. Thanks, Wen. So as most of you know, I'm Gina Ray Foster. I direct the Teaching and Learning Center here at John Jay. And I've been working with Wynn and her predecessor on this particular CUNY OER grant for the last 5 years, moving into the 5th year. And it's a really great match of helping students work with resources in terms of finances and helping students work with resources in terms of what's going to be best for their own learning.
Thanks, Gina. And I'm Wynn Ferdinand. I'm Director of General Education and Educational Partnerships at John Jay. This will be, I guess, my 3rd year working on this project. So today we're going to do some quick introductions, get you acquainted with using Jamboard if you haven't used it before. In each of our 3 sessions over the next 3 weeks, we have some videos of faculty who have participated in OER. So today you'll hear from Yulia. And then our goals are really for today are to get you connected with the world of OER and open pedagogy. We're going to explore a little bit some of the resources available to you, and then talk about how you might incorporate open pedagogy and the 5 R's of working with open educational resources into your courses. So most of you have already been into our group on the Commons, right? So you know that you're part of a subgroup. I've listed them here too. And if you haven't used Jamboard before, it's sort of like a virtual whiteboard, right? And really good for collaboration. So we think it'll be good for this seminar. What we'd like you to do in lieu of posting in the chat is come over here. If you can see my screen in this navigation bar on the left side, there's a spot for sticky notes. If you click on that, you can type in, for instance, if you're in group A, type in a yellow sticky note to respond to this little prompt here. Share your name, department, and which course or courses you plan to update using OER during this seminar and next year. So we'll give you a couple minutes to get connected, and I'll open the chat if you are having any trouble accessing the Jamboard, or if you've just joined us. Let me paste it again here. Yeah, and if you want to use some other tools in here, feel free to do that. Perfect. Thank you, Erica, for getting us started. And yeah, you can move those around, and this will give us a nice record of everybody who's participating. If you're not sure how to get to the sticky, just click. If you can see what I'm doing with my little pointer finger here, clicking on that, and then that creates a sticky note. And then you can start typing. Once you press save, it'll just post up there.
Why is it telling me that this is a test?
I just typed that just to test it if it's working or not.
Oh, this right here?
Yeah. Sorry.
That's okay.
Can I remove it from my end, or you can do it?
You should be able to if you click on this. Is this what you're seeing? Yeah, there you go. If people are having trouble, we could do some intros out loud too.
So mine is there. It's just appearing on a on a slide that is blue background and it has the OER and John Jay logos on it.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see. Okay. I didn't tell you guys how to navigate, so we can move them over. So if you look up at the top here, if you can look at my screen for a sec, up in the top of the Jamboard, there's a little bar that lets you navigate between pages, or what they call frames. So that's cool. I'll open up this page, and I see you guys are moving over. And we'll move Kate and Erica, maybe we'll move your intros over to the front page if you don't mind. Let's see if we can do that. All right, so we've got Richard and Lisa, Maria, Mark, John. We have reps here, you know, people representing a pretty wide variety of departments, and you might have noticed in your smaller groups, we've tried to pair you by sort of related disciplines or groups of disciplines, because we think you'll have a more successful dialogue around sort of planning and sharing resources going forward. So hopefully that'll work out. This is it seems like it's been a little tricky for us to see everybody so far. So I'm gonna stop sharing for a sec, and maybe we'll just let everyone see each other and say hello real quick. Okay, Gina?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so Lisa, you're in the box next to me. Do you just want to say just tell us your name and your department and then call on somebody else?
Okay, Lisa Sue, and I'm in the psych department. The course I'd like to try open pedagogy and open educational resources is with my Psych 421 class.
You can pass the mic to somebody, whoever's next to you.
Muad?
Hello, this is Muad Obidat. I'm from the computer science department, and I actually I joined this workshop to make use of any resources that will help me actually designing some labs for my classes in the fall. Thank you. And who's next to me? Lisa?
Lisa just went.
Oh, Lisa just went. Okay, sorry. Maria?
Okay. Hi, everyone. Maria Grew in the English department, adjunct professor. And I wrote on the sticky that I was going to work on my Lit 232, which is American Stories, but I've already ordered the books for that. So scratch that. I'm going to make it English 101 is the one that I want to make. OER. Let's see. I'm going to actually call on Mark, on Professor Alpert. Mark, unmute yourself.
Yeah, sorry. One of my problems is that I'm on a very small screen and I cannot have everything open at the same time. So I'm still not able to move my sticky note to the proper page. I guess I'll have to try to figure that out. I apologize for all of my problems that I'll be causing you guys. But anyway, I'm Mark. How's that for an introduction? And I'm also in the English department along with Maria. Thanks for Dr. Goosing me. Happy to be here. And yeah, I'm giving this a try. I've had some problems with OER, mainly because of the question I posed in my little group, which is that I want to have a wide variety of sources, and I'm having some difficulties with being able to get sort of free use of modern sources. But I'm happy to be here and to hear what we have to say. So let me jump on and grab somebody else here. Let's hit up. How about you, Richard? You can go for it.
Oh, thank you. My name is Richard from Science Department, and I don't know much about the open source materials, but I have some ideas. But so hopefully I learned something from this workshop, and then develop something in the future.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Hi, everyone. I'm Justine Boer. I'm in the philosophy department. And one of my courses only uses open resources. That's been really, really great. The 3 other classes that I've taught do not. They use a text. And I'd like to learn how to make the course more affordable for students, because I know that buying textbooks is a really big expense for them, and I'd like to learn strategies for getting, sources for them that they don't have to pay for. And I'm actually particularly interested in. I recently learned that you can have companies sell just a portion of their textbook if it's an online textbook, and so I'm interested in finding ways to have parts of a textbook together with open resources to lower the cost for students. I will call on Professor Fairweather.
Hi, good day, everyone. My name is Dania Fairweather. I teach as an adjunct with in the anthropology department. I'm sorry, I didn't catch the sticky note activity. I'm just jumping in, so I'm sorry about that. But please let me know. And what else was I supposed to say?
Just what course you are planning to work on or want to explore.
Yes, okay. I'm working on the ethnography of youth and justice, and that's a lot of fun. So I'm looking to just elevate that experience for students. Oh, and let me call on, let's see, John Vespucci. I hope I said your last name right.
Sure did. Thank you. My name is John Vespucci. I've been an adjunct at John Jay for several years now, both with public management and sociology. The class for the fall that I'm looking to teach with OER is the classical sociological theory, 312 for the sociology department. OER, I've actually used it a little bit at another school, and one of my main interests in OER, actually 2 main interests, is that it seems as if a lot of textbooks have actually have a lot of antiquated information, not necessarily with classical sociological theory, but more so with criminal justice and other aspects. So to get more modern information, I think is great. Also, like I posted in the forum, in looking at some of these prices of textbooks, they are becoming more and more outrageous. And it seems as if it's very unfair for these students to be faced with these outrageous costs. And I find actually that a lot of my students do not buy textbooks, and it kind of puts them at a huge disadvantage. And it just seems as if, we can find alternative sources for them. That would be a great idea. So that's just a little bit about me. Let me see who has an, okay, I can see Nick over there, for a name from the past, so I might as well call on him.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nick Petropoulos, so I'm an adjunct at the Department of Criminal Justice. I've been teaching for a few years, and I've used open resources in the past, but I'm looking more specifically to explore even further the use of open resources for my class. I'm looking to apply what we will learn in this short course in the fall in one of the terrorism courses that I will be teaching. And yeah, I think I agree. I think some people said already that the use of open resources can be an alternative to the outrageous prices of textbooks. And I've seen many of my students struggling to get the textbooks. So I think if I can use open resources as an alternative, that would be great. It would help the students get engaged even more in the course. I've seen over the last few years, I've seen students struggling to keep up with the rest of the course because they haven't even had the opportunity to buy the textbook. So they were looking left and right to find alternatives by themselves. So, and this was not beneficial at all for the learning process. So yes, I'm very much looking forward to working with you over the next 3 weeks. And let me call Erica.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Erica Marte. I am an adjunct lecturer in the Latin American and Latinx Studies Department. I will be teaching Latinx communities in the United States in the fall, a 100 level course that I'm hoping to really focus on the OER and open pedagogy values and ideas as when it comes to building assignments or conveying the importance of student knowledge or community knowledge and things of that nature. And I will call Garam.
Hello, everyone. I'm Garam from the Department of Anthropology, and I'm interested in incorporating OEM materials into actually two courses. One of them is Introduction to Cultural Anthropology, and the other one is Race, Gender, Ethnicity from Anthropological Perspective. The problems I encountered with it, I have a lot of classic materials, but I want to, see that I'm looking for more up-to-date modern materials. And also, if I can find some resources, most of my teaching resources talks a lot about American society, but if I can find some sources that deals with, the beyond US, that I would be really happy to incorporate as well. I want to call Iralma Poso.
Hi, thank you. I am going to be teaching, sorry, let me backtrack. I teach in the public management department. I teach accounting courses as an adjunct, and I teach three courses. I teach accounting information systems, auditing, and I teach this graduate course once a year. It's analytical inspection of oversight. And that class can be kind of dry because the textbook nobody buys a textbook for that class. There's a lot of gaps with the students' experience where some of them have done data analytics, some of them have not. And I want to use more of the current events that have happened or the fraud that has happened during the pandemic and use some of the analytical methods that people who are actually working in the field use. And I want to figure out how to do it more cohesively because I don't want to just put together all these assignments that aren't kind of meshing together. I wanted to scaffold, I wanted to make sense and to help students to be able to learn about audit planning as they are doing the assignments. I think, did we call everybody or?
We have Professor Young and Colley. Yeah.
They're waving at you.
Professor Young.
Sorry, let me unmute. Can you hear me? I was having some technical difficulties. That's why I was a little late. Okay, I had a password, couldn't get in, needed to change my password. So I teach 3 different courses depending on the semester. I teach victimology, which is in the sociology department and the criminal justice department. So it's a crossover course. I also teach Soc 101, Introduction to Sociology, and I teach women, or I like to call it gender and social control in the US. So I'm looking to, I do use Soc 215. I use a little more open source than I do for my other 2 courses, but I'm really looking for the fall to transform my victimology course. I feel like the textbook I use has a lot of great information, but I feel like sometimes by the time the students get it, it can be a little outdated. And I want to also, like some of my other colleagues here have said, want to use some real live statistics, things that are happening now, trying to incorporate what's going on with the pandemic and with, health and victims and things of that nature. And I also use a lot of videos, but sometimes with the videos, they will, students like visuals. So with the videos, it's great, but sometimes they disappear and you can't get them back. So trying to figure out what videos I can use as open source or open pedagogy, or maybe what students would like to see or talk about. That's me.
Yes, Kate, go for it.
Yeah, I think it's my turn. I'm Kate Colley. I work for the library. I'm the web and emerging tech person. So it's really great for me to be here and kind of be the eyes and ears of the library, because likely and sort of ideally your students will be coming to us when they're in need of help for OER materials.
Awesome, thank you. I think we heard from everybody, so welcome. And I'm gonna navigate back to the Jamboard and just give you one more tour, because we are gonna go back there and respond to some of Yulia's statements in her video in just a minute. So take a look back up here. Let's see if I can get there. Right now, if you're looking at my screen, we're on the first frame. If you open up this like navigation bar at the top, or if you click, you can advance through the frames. The next place we're going to work is here. Let me move my chat over. What I'm going to do now is play a couple videos for you. They're each 2 minutes long or so. Yulia's going to talk a little bit about her experience converting courses, and then we're going to ask you to respond to this question. So the first question related to what she talks about is, what course design, pedagogy, or student success goals can OER help address? If you're having trouble accessing the Jamboard, just direct message me in the chat, and we'll see if we can help. We'll do our best. I've got to take my earphones out to play the video. And I'm actually going to turn this fan off next to me to make sure that you can hear as best as possible. So just give me 1 sec. Okay, so here comes the first clip. It starts kind of with her reading the question, and then you'll hear her talk. Sure, this is up.
Questions I have here is, what influenced your decision to convert your course to open educational resources? Of course, here at John Jay, we all care about our students, and some students come from disadvantaged backgrounds, and for them, spending $60, $70, or over $100 is a big expense. So I thought that I myself come from a developing country. I'm Ukrainian by origin. I was born and raised and partially educated in Ukraine. So I know how important these things may be for students. So to give everybody an equal opportunity, I said to myself, well, how much of an effort is this for me to convert the course so students don't really have to spend money on books? And my experience has been really positive. It may not apply to all of you, and I'll tell you later why. But generally, I think this can be done, and I do believe in this important mission that open educational resources play in contemporary pedagogy. That's one of the reasons why I converted to OER. And the other reason is, of course, I wanted my courses to be relevant for contemporary modern events. I'm teaching international relations and also international criminal justice courses. In my courses, we cover the work of international organizations to a lot. And so I thought, how do I liaison with international organizations? They publish a lot of research / policy materials of mine, and I use them in my teaching. And also because they're updated on an annual, biannual basis. So they come out regularly, and I thought that was a good idea to also achieve better quality of educational resources in my course. So those are the primary reasons for OER conversion. What was your process like?
Okay, so Yulia talked a little bit about, and hopefully you could hear her. She talked a little bit about the cost savings issues that some of you have already mentioned in our discussion. And she talked about keeping current with emerging issues or policy shifts or practice shifts in her field, right? So you can go ahead and post some ideas about how based on what you know so far, OER might help you address course design, pedagogy, or student success goals in your course. And we'll give you a couple minutes to post. All right, so we've got a few comments already. The goal of graduating without any additional debt, increasing choice and agency in the classroom. If you're looking for the place to post, if you're already on this tab, you can, if you're already looking at this same tab, you can find right here on the left navigation menu, there's something called sticky note. If you click on that, it'll create a note and then you should be able to type. If you want to just type your comment in the chat, if you're having problems, no problem, I will paste it in there for you. Yep, so we've got some other comments about agency, empowering students. This is in this link, Jackie, I'm gonna pass it to you. There you go. Let me know if you got it. So you have to open that in a screen in your browser. Let's see what else we have. Getting students more involved in the learning process, cost, increasing collaboration. Okay. So I think we kind of already established some of these goals as shared, issues and concerns that you're thinking about before we even heard from Yulia. So I'm going to move forward. Keep posting your comments as you want. I'm going to let you listen to the next clip. And we are going to explore this question about where you'll search for OER, what kinds of organizations or platforms, right, you might use. And then you'll hear Yulia talk about using some of the ancillary materials available on the site that she uses. So we'd just like to hear from you your thoughts about doing all that, using similar materials. So let's get this back open.
Searching for materials for your course. Well, obviously, I looked at the websites of international organizations and the materials they publish. To give an example, like World Drug Report, for instance, or Trafficking in Persons Report by the United States Department of State. And then I got in contact with organizations, and I was lucky to come across the Education for Justice initiative from the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. And as I said, I think this seminar is all about sharing experiences. Some of you come from the disciplines which may not be that relevant to what I came through in the OER conversion, but some of you may actually follow my steps and find this presentation useful. I heard somebody said crime and migration, some drug abuse. So perhaps you could also find organization, international organization, which would have those open educational resources that you could use. So the UNODC is mandated to cover topics related to transnational organized crime that includes trafficking in persons, drug trafficking, wildlife crimes, and many other crimes that cross borders and that I focus on in the courses I teach. So at some point, following the Doha Declaration of the previous UN Crime Congress, UNODC received some money from Qatar to develop educational materials. They hired faculty from different countries to produce these modules. They were peer reviewed, so they went through a very academic way of producing this material. So I'm speaking about the serious and organized crime, and this series consists of 14 modules, 16 modules, sorry. So, and they cover different topics of organized crime. So, for instance, I teach a course in the political science department, course 3 to 5, which is called the politics of transnational crime. And pretty much, I use these materials a lot in the course. So, definitions of organized crime, organizing the definition of crimes, through multiple aspects of organized crime and the connection to terrorism. I'm just going to show you one of the modules and how it looks like. It has key issues, so these sections serve as the required reading for the module that I teach. I'll give you one of them, the definition in the organized crime convention. So this is how long one section is. Not too bad, right? So put together 4, 5, 6 sections. That's pretty much what undergraduate students manage to read, plus any additional publications. And then this module also comes with case studies, thinking critically through fiction. So they suggest a movie with some guiding questions for a discussion, like discussion questions. And some case studies, as I said, excerpts of legislation, not very useful for me, but they also give a suggestion about possible class structure for readings, advanced readings, and then student assessment. I like this part. They give you a suggestion about some of the questions you could use for the materials presented in the sections above. So as you can see, these are pretty much pedagogically solid types of materials I can use on my topic in my teaching. In that sense, the benefits of this is that the materials have been validated by experts on the topic. The materials were released by UN agencies, so it's all Creative Commons license. We can use them as much as we want without any copyright concerns. And so generally, I've been really pleased about the availability of these resources. I also use publications by the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime, which is a think tank / research institute that covers the topic of transnational organized crime. And they have a multiplicity of reports, very interesting research, solid reports. They're not necessarily targeted for pedagogical purposes, but that can be manipulated through discussion boards or through other questions or suggestions for students. And I think they work fine for me to teach in my discipline and in the courses that I currently teach at John Jay.
You're muted. You're muted, I believe. Or maybe your headphones.
So while we're waiting for Wynn's voice, this is Gina, and you can see the next slide is already up for you to start working on. So go back to your browsers, please. And the prompt here is, where will you begin your search for OER? Will you look to organizations that publish open access content related to your course or other resources? And I'm actually going to go to my browser. Oh, right. How would you incorporate any ancillary materials you find, such as question banks? And some people are already jumping in. So think about what you saw Yulia do and think about what relates to what you're doing with your courses. I noticed the group A sticky note disappears every time we jump in, and I keep recreating it. Now I'm going to create a group C one just so you'd still have the color coding if you need it. Here we go. So we have some great stuff showing up already, very specific and some more general. Also notice with the sticky notes, you can resize them. They're really like text boxes. And for some of these, you've got enough in here that we read it a little better if it's larger. Move stuff around here. Okay. Well, it looks like wind has temporarily disappeared. And if you're in one of the areas where we're having severe thunderstorms, you can understand that might be happening suddenly. I'm going to share my screen so we can get back on that page, and then you can feel free to unmute yourselves and actually talk about what you're doing and seeing. Okay. So we already have several things up, right? And this reflects about half the group, I think, who are on right now. So let's see. The American Society of Criminology. Who is this from Group B? Jacqueline? Yeah. Jackie or Jacqueline?
You can call me Jackie.
Okay, thank you. So what do you mean by American Society of Criminology, American Sociological Society? You're looking at papers? They're published or sites? What do they have?
Yeah, they have both.
Okay.
So, and there's a lot of like American Society of Criminology, even something like the conference where you can talk to other people that they have every November. And there's a lot of great information on their site for finding information.
Great. Great. Thank you. And all right. Just making sure I'm not missing Win, trying to get back in.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Excellent. You're back. Yay.
All right.
Okay, welcome back. So we're just starting to talk about what's going up on the board, and some people are putting more things up. Jackie was telling us about the different societies she's listed here: American Society of Criminology, Sociological. So let's move to something different. How about, let's see, Gutenberg ebooks? That just came up. Who put that up and why?
Oh, that was me, because I was very hard pressed to think of something quickly. I had to step out for a doctor's meeting, and I really apologize for that. So it just occurred to me though, because I was looking for a book for my lit class and realized that it's on that site. So I just thought that would be a good place. I was just looking up Poe also. They have all kinds of great stuff for American Lit.
Okay, we have a newcomer, and so I'm going to put the link in the chat for Leo. Hi, Leo. Welcome. Glad you made it. Okay. It's so interesting, and thank you, Maria, and no worries. We're all living rather complicated lives right now that are more complicated than they used to be. We've got to be flexible. So I'm seeing organizations. I see a blog, I see ebooks, I see journals, and some interesting suggestions about working with students to build the materials. So who is that?
That was me.
Tell us more, please.
Well, I try to learn it. I don't know how to do it, actually.
Well, you don't have to know how to do it. What's your vision?
Well, perhaps as an assignment for students, and just come up a bunch of questions and build up, for example, question banks.
Yes.
Something like that.
Right. So we often have or suggest that students do ancillary material building, those are the question banks, sample quizzes and tests, glossaries, annotations. These are great ways to get students involved. Wendy, do you want to say anything more about this?
Well, hopefully would like to learn that how technically do this, like how do we distribute and how do we like a little technical details. I don't know how to do it.
Right. Well, we'll address some of those in the seminar.
That's great.
And some of those will refer you out. It's really an intro opportunity these 3 weeks to start thinking of ideas like this and then thinking about what your next steps might be. And hopefully we can support you over the next year in doing something more fully.
That's great.
Yeah, so I mean, there's definitely some technologies out there that will help students collaborate with you and with each other on kind of editing, remixing, and revising existing content. There's also the question of developing content with students, right? And so I think one of the challenges there is choosing some kind of authoring platform that'll work well for your needs. And I know you're in the Department of Sciences, so there may be additional layers of considerations there for how students interact with content, either in or outside of the lab. So yeah, and this seminar, you know, we've designed it sort of as a first step into this, into these kinds of projects, with the idea that if there's interest, we will provide additional compensation and supports for you to work on sort of a full-scale conversion over the academic year 2021-22. 3 weeks is definitely not enough time to get a complete conversion or materials done, right? But you'll get a taste. So
that's great.
Thanks. So let's go back to Julia for one last discussion. Hopefully my audio will work. And then we will continue with our exploration of what OER you might seek out. Can you still hear me? Okay, here we go.
Have your teaching practices or types of assignments used changed as a result of your experience with OER Open Pedagogy? Yes, I think I had to come up with questions which are applicable to those assigned duties, and also develop quiz questions that are applicable. So in some sense, the content I teach has been a little bit influenced by what kind of materials I have. But this is the rules of the game, I guess. If you don't want to write your own OER article, you take somebody else's publication and you have to a little bit adjust your content in the framework that it works for your students and learning objectives and all those things that you have to have in a regular John Jay course, which is approved by several layers of committees. So some changes were there, but not too many in my experience. I think on the other hand, I kept my courses very applicable to the activities of international organizations, and also sometimes we have the chance with my students to discuss job opportunities given what they study in the international criminal justice major. Tell us about how you view the results of your efforts to incorporate OER. Did the upfront work pay off in organizing plans for future semesters? Yeah, I think absolutely. I feel more confident about what I teach. I know what I teach is actually happening in the world. I make my students connect in terms of content and understanding of their own role and their future career opportunities in the framework of international organizations and in the framework of contemporary events. So I feel like the theories that we cover in the course, I embedded in hands-on exploration of problems and issues. But as I said in the beginning, my experience has been positive just because my discipline and the scope of topics I teach are suitable for this kind of transformation. And I hope that most of you will be able to do the same, though I totally understand the disciplinary limitations, for instance, in philosophy or maybe chemistry, that liaison with some external organizations which work in the field will not be possible for you. But at the same time, I hope that my experience can also be, in some sense, inspirational for some of you to explore roads not taken and partnerships not built before.
Okay. Let's go back to our Jamboard. Okay. So Yulia talked a little bit about sort of some of the questions that she had to wrestle with as far as making changes to her content. She talked again about making her course as current as possible, right? And then some of the challenges that she perceives others might have with the constraints maybe of resources available in your discipline, right? But like Professor Lee was just mentioning, there's also this opportunity for students and you to get involved in either creating activities and assignments or even content from a variety of sources. So we're going to start shifting sort of our focus in this discussion over to questions of open pedagogy in a few minutes. And this question is designed to help you think through that idea a little bit more. Sorry, I wanted to just make one more comment while you're thinking. I apologize. She talked a little bit about sort of the distinguishing between current issues and topics and sort of the grounding theory in her field. And so that's another question too around how students might interact with either of those components in some of the courses you teach. All right, so we'll get to explore this question a little bit more in the next hour. So I'm going to move forward so that we can make sure we get through everything we're hoping to today. So you can keep adding your comments here. If you'd like to advance to the next frame, we're just going to look at a basic definition in frame 7 here for open education resources. Does anybody want to read that instead of listening to me read it?
I'll read it. Oh, sorry, Erica, go ahead.
All right. The concept of open educational resources, OER, describes any educational resources, including curriculum maps, course materials, textbooks, streaming videos, multimedia applications, podcasts, and any other materials that have been designed for use in teaching and learning, that are openly available for use by educators and students without an accompanying need to pay royalties or license fees.
Thank you.
And again, go ahead.
Yeah, go. You can read the bottom part too.
And in CUNY, for our OER projects, you can also use library licensed materials for your courses at no cost to students.
Yeah, so I mean, the sort of basic difference between a zero cost or low textbook cost course and every other course is this $25 mark, right? So you'll see if you, and we can show you how to search for zero cost and low cost courses if you're interested to see what students can see. Everything below $25 can have one of those designations. And that number, for some of you have been, for some of you have been working on this for a while, has shifted, but we believe that this is the number CUNY is endorsing right now. Maria, you wanted to say, I'll say something about, ask your question so we can talk about library licenses, yeah.
No, it's just a point of clarification. It never occurred to me that the library stuff would fall under the OER, just because there is that paywall in the sense that the students are paying tuition for that. But that means then we do have access to a ton of stuff. I mean,
a ton.
It's okay. All right.
Yeah. And CUNY's taken the position, you know, since we're spending the library, and Kate, who's here, can tell you, we're spending a lot of money on those licenses. And it would be a shame for students to not be able to access those materials that can be really useful as part of your course, right? So that's the basic sort of principle that we're working with here, is that there's no cost to students, right? But the idea of OER and open courses has more dimensions than just making sure that there's no cost, right? And you can see here in the definition, this author, Neil Butcher, even included some examples of what we're going to call ancillary materials in this seminar, which are, you know, which is all the work that you do to help students work with the texts or other media that you select for your course, right? Whether it's, like Yulia showed us, question banks, or, you know, pre-made assessments, or discussion board questions that you put together in Blackboard, or any one of a million other ways you get students to interact with content, right? Yeah, Garam, go ahead.
Oh, yes. Talking about the library use, I was wondering that if there are any programs for students to make a tour to library resources, for example, especially the fall term. I have a lot of freshman students, so what I always do is just helping them to understand what kind of library sources available and how to research for it. But if I have information, if there is any kind of the program run by John Jay Library per se, you know, providing information to students, it will be also helpful for me to know about it.
Yeah. Kate, I don't know, you want to respond?
So while I am new faculty, so I can only really speak on what I've known from the past year. We do individual workshops with your class upon request. So if you'd like for one of us to come and give sort of like a digital library tour during your class time, you can send a request to Kathleen Collins. I'll drop her email in the chat, but she's the person who sort of facilitates those teaching opportunities. But I would encourage all of you from different departments to do that if you have time and can fit it into your syllabus.
Yeah, and you can ask your chair who the liaison is for your department. Everybody has one or two liaisons from the library.
Great.
Thanks, Kate. So, you know, one of the other, but once you sort of decide to take the leap and include OER in your courses, right? One of the next questions you have to ask is, where should I start looking, right? So I'm just going to give you a brief tour here through several tabs I have open in my browser. They're all linked here, and you'll be able to find them on the seminar site later on. So here we go. Here we have a LibGuide that an OER librarian who works with us on this project, V. Harrington, helped us to create. And what you see here is content for courses that other faculty, your colleagues, have developed over the course of this project during the last 4 years, right? So next week, you'll see Crystal Ensley talking about her work with OER. And these are some resources, as an example, that professors teaching that course might incorporate for their own purposes. So what we've done here is identify a set of open access or library license materials that other faculty have used to teach this course. And if you're teaching this course or a related course, right, you could adopt the same. So this is sort of a repository of the work we've been doing at John Jay. Here, I'm going to show you a few sites that the librarians have put together. In this LibGuide, you get some more background on OER resources and then guides from other campuses across the CUNY system and beyond, right? But what's particularly useful here, I might have this link someplace else, but what's particularly useful here is this, I think, collection of resources by discipline. So if you're, we have some, for instance, anthropologists here up top on our list. If you're looking for resources in your field, this might be a really good place to start. Especially, you'll notice, I think, in the lower level courses that tend to be more standard experiences across colleges and universities, you might find even whole textbooks for your field. Erica, you had your hand up.
Yes, I have a quick logistical question. When I was looking at this yesterday, I'm wondering what's the difference between OER materials and like journals from Google Scholar, or would they be considered the same thing? Or for example, I am also currently a student, so I have a lot of access to a bunch of libraries from NYU and from John Jay. So I'm kind of asking about the license, because that's what the part that I get muddled. I don't know if I should be sharing these materials or what's the difference between those things.
Yeah, we're going to look at commons licenses in a little while. So there is sort of like a official protocol, right, for licensing OER, but then that is muddled particularly by our ability to incorporate the library license materials, right? So those materials are less open in a way because they wouldn't permit students or faculty to revise, edit, and remix in the same way that something that's truly open access would. So some things you find, like in Google Scholar, they might have open access license or Creative Commons licenses, right? So that means you can adapt as you see fit. Others are, if they're published in a subscription-based journal, right? Not as much flexibility, but certainly if the library hosts the content, students can read it for free, once they paid their tuition, right? So it's a little tricky, but we'll continue. I think that's also sort of an evolving aspect of this work, but we'll explore it a little bit. All right, so clicking over, this is a site called opened.cuny.edu. This is a repository of everything that's been created inside of the CUNY system in the past 4 years as a result of this project. So a lot of really cool resources here from all across the university and every discipline, really. This is some other, I'm not as familiar with Wakelet, maybe some of you are, but this is sort of just a repository of all kinds of background information and work in OER in CUNY. It's created by, I think, one of the librarians at the central office. And let's see what else. We looked at this. This is then, thinking about beyond the CUNYverse. Other materials that you could look to. There are some university systems that have just taken on OER sort of to the max, right? In particular, the British Columbia campus site, where they have converted basically all their courses, and other places that have a lot of funds to spend on this kind of work, like MIT. Oregon has some stuff, and OpenStax is a textbook a peer-reviewed textbook resource. Actually, some of our faculty have contributed to these texts from John Jay, but a lot of people use those. So there's a lot to look at. The last place, and you'll see this looks kind of similar to the OpenEd CUNY page. This is sort of the worldwide version of the OpenEd CUNY page, right? So if you created something, you could submit it here too. So that's a little tour. We're gonna ask you to take a look around this week and see if you can identify between 1 and 3 resources that might work well for your projects. Erica raised some questions about licensing and how to incorporate some of these, some materials you find into your course. And I think that's the other sort of set of concerns and principles to keep in mind, that when we talk about OER, we're also really interested in the character or the ways that we can use the materials that we select, right? So people who work in this field talk about the 5 R's of OER, which include reuse, revise, remix, redistribute, and retain. And we're going to ask you to explore those a little bit in the discussion post this week. All right, so moving on to licenses. This is a chart that shows you the many possibilities for Creative Commons licenses. They're really the predominant way that people license new OER. You see this a lot in a sort of more simple form when people use images on the web, right? You see a lot of licensing or attribution this way. The best way, I believe, it's too sort of complicated to take you through in this 90-minute session, but the best way I think for you to learn about how this works is to navigate to this page about choosing a license. And if you go there, you can play around with the features of a license, right? So do you want people to be able to adapt your work, right? Do you want commercial use, right? As you answer those questions, you'll get information about which license would apply to your work, right? Or you can use this to sort of interpret the ways the different licenses work. So we've got some more information about that up on the site, on the seminar site. But that is sort of the organizing framework that many people creating content that is open access use to license their work. You heard Robin DeRosa talk a little bit about that in the video if you watched that before today. All right. So we heard from Yulia a little bit about her considerations with selecting OER. I've taken you on a whirlwind trip through some of the resources that are available for you. And we're going to ask you this week to find some resources. So on these 2 pages of the Jamboard, we're just going to take like 5 minutes, and you can post a response on either page. What we want you to do is think about the kinds of questions you would ask yourself as you evaluate what OER is available to you, right? So do you want to ask questions about suitability for your student audience or your colleague audience and your goals for your course? Are there there are tech considerations. What questions do you want to ask, right? And then back here, what questions do you want to ask about the reliability of the source, the licensing issues, and then how you might be able to use it in class? So take a couple minutes and post some questions to help you kind of get started thinking about your evaluative process. All right, so we got a few questions going here in nearly every category. Some interesting questions and thinking about how practices that you already use, like Bloom's taxonomy, might connect to this work, or if things need to change. Some questions.
Gina, I have a lot to say about the Bloom revised taxonomy and how you can use it. So
yeah. So I'm going to turn it over. We're going to post some a sample of some criteria that has been developed for evaluating OER. We'll share that with you as part of this session's resources. I'm going to turn it over to Gina now.
Great.
Gina, do you want to share?
Yes, please.
Okay.
You will stop and I will take it over. Okay. This reminds me of, learning to drive and having to get out and change, who was sitting in the driver's seat. I think we're doing really well here. So you have some great questions here. And it's interesting that even though many of these are about logistics, they're really also about the learning. So let's take a look. Let's go forward. And I'm going to ask Muat, would you read this quote for us, please?
I'm sorry, which one? This one? Okay. Open pedagogy is the practice of engaging with students as creators of information rather than simply consumers of it. It's a form of experiential learning in which students demonstrate understanding through the act of creation.
Yes. So we have that quote, and now here are two photos of different styles, approaches to learning. And we have the scales of justice in between. What are you seeing in these pictures? And you can use sticky notes, you can annotate, speak to me and also write, annotate this. What's the difference between one side and the other in terms of who's doing the learning and where the power of the education is centered?
Power center in the students.
So on one side, we see it with the students. There's a passive audience. The collaborative can be moved either side. There we go. Okay, where's this blue going to go? Is it going to go right, left, or in the middle? Someone has a cynical comment about budgets and class sizes. Interaction, engagement, one voice versus many voices, yes. Any more? Social learning, traditional students as educational banks. So we have two financial observations here, yes? Two economical. And brainstorming, okay. So in the picture on the left, the photo on the left, one person is standing and everyone else is sitting. What is that telling us about where the learning and the knowledge are located? Go ahead and unmute and just shout it out.
I'd say that the person who's standing is just lecturing, and I took a lot of accounting courses in the past where I took naps. So they're not really engaging with the students and having them do activities as much. And the person sitting with the students is letting the students facilitate their own learning in a sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So I also see that the person who is standing and who has control of that very large screen is the focus of attention. So does it seem as though the learning is emanating from that person and that person has control?
I think not necessarily. It depends also from the expectation of the students as well. Sometimes you really want very informative lectures, digested information. You know, if contents are very enormous and huge, and sometimes it's really difficult to digest by yourself. So, sometimes I think just the traditional lectures. Of course, if you have an hour, like doing a whole hour lecture could be, maybe less effective in terms of like discussing or etc. But sometimes I think the students or the ones that and it's really hard to judge, like just the formatting, representing the lecture in the middle and then a lot of people sitting does not necessarily mean that the power just allocates on the lecturer, I would say.
I think that's a good point. And there's quite a bit of research about passive learning, which is usually fostered by traditional lectures. And there's a good bit of research also about flipped teaching, where students do the lecture part outside of the live class. And they're often supported by the ancillary materials like a workbook, right, or another platform that helps them do a punctuated lecture that stops and then they're interacting with something. And I think we have to be careful to label something as all good or all bad, obviously. And at the same time, what we're getting at with OER is a far more horizontal form of learning. And we provide students with the structure and the resources, and we guide them. It's a big shift for a lot of people. It's a big shift for those of us who went through traditional learning, and particularly in the sciences. It's something that we can be thinking about and how it might work, because our students are coming out of learning experiences, but also just life experiences where there's a lot less of centralized authority, and there's a lot more distraction and a lot more believing that they have the right to speak up, that they have a need to be engaged. And we have to figure out how we're going to be with this set of generations that we're in the midst of and that are coming. So I think open pedagogy lets us move towards that. Open pedagogy has its own area of research now, its own area of scholarship. And in open pedagogy, there are 8 attributes. So just like the Bloom taxonomy and the revised taxonomy have levels, different models have different features. There are 5 R's for OER. We have 8 attributes of open pedagogy. We don't use all of these at once. We usually start with 1 or 2 that fit our teaching style. So we can go back to those pictures and think about where we are. And in doing so, we think about, is there something we want to add, or how well is this working? And we'll be asking you in your first assignment to identify one of these that will fit with the assignment you're going to design. But for now, if you scan through these, go ahead and annotate this slide, and you can even add to the chat which ones you're already using in your courses. Okay, someone's used all of them. There's reflection is very popular here. Peer review. I would think many of you have used peer review in one form or another, right? I'm curious how many of you have looked at people, openness, and trust, or sharing ideas and resources as active parts of your courses. Okay. Great. Great. So are you seeing that you're already engaged in open pedagogy? And we think that you'll want to do more as you incorporate OER. So looking at the previous slide, and remember you can open up the slides on your browser and go back and forth. We're looking at those 8 attributes and these 5 R's. If we're looking at retain, we might think that there are 1 or 2 attributes that fit that better for open pedagogy, and that would help us design assignments towards that. Revising is something else, reusing, remixing, redistributing. Redistributing might go very well with sharing ideas and resources. So see what you can do in terms of matches here, because all of this is going to push you towards, I think, being more creative and reflective in the assignment we're giving you for week 1. So we have peer review for revise. What else? What would we do for reuse, for example? Okay, reflective practice, retain, nice. Innovation and creativity. Openness and trust, where's that going? Redistribute, beautiful. Okay. Hey. Firstly, I think this is really fun to see the sticky notes pop up and then try to predict, anticipate where you're going to put them. Okay. What else? We have something for everything. Where is connected community going to go? Whose is that? I think of many places this could go. Okay. So I want you to think about this particular slide and the one before with the attributes as you're doing your assignment this week, and as we go forward, you can keep coming back to these Jamboards and you can add more information. You can take screenshots. You can, share them as you need to your own desktops, I think, and use these as guidance and sometimes launching points for what you want to do. And Maria, yes, they do. And when, yes, connected community in the middle is exactly it. But then when I think the whole circle of attributes could be reduced and placed right over this 5R. So maybe we'll look and see if we can do that soon. Okay. All right, I'm going to go back here before we go over the assignment, because someone asked about the Bloom taxonomy, and there are 2 Bloom taxonomies, as I'm sure you know. One is the original and one is the Bloom revised taxonomy. I tend to use the revised taxonomy more because the top is creativity, and I think that allows more room for growth for all of us. When we're using the Bloom taxonomy, revised taxonomy, it's helpful to look at the learning objectives for our course and also where students are. Our students may not realistically get beyond remembering, understanding, and applying. They may not make it all the way to the top, and that's not reasonable because they're in a 100 level class or a 200 level class. And it may be the capstone course you want more of every student is going to do an independent project and show us how self-sufficient they are with their learning. So first we think about what's reasonable, considering our audience and considering the learning that we are asking them to do. And then we can start attaching these. So for remembering, which of the 5 R's would be appropriate with an OER? What kind of OER would we do? My eyes first go to retain, right? And then if we go back to the 8 attributes, you've got peer review and reflected practice. Probably not innovation and creativity if you want your students to be remembering major concepts. We don't play with the concepts. We don't modify them or synthesize them or analyze them until we're really fairly solid with them. Right? We need to know what the theorem is and how to use it before we start to do something else with it. Right? That's how I would approach this. And I think that Bloom is not the only place to go. But if you're familiar with that taxonomy, it's a great place to start. Okay. So we're right towards the end of time, and I want to leave a few minutes for questions for Wynn and me and any kind of final comments Wynn has. I'm going to go to our site and just show you real quickly where we have things, because that's where the discussion and that's the group is where the discussion post is, and the assignment is where we have the schedule is where we have the assignments on the site. So here on the site is separate from the group. You can get to the site from the group. Under discussions and assignments on the site, there's a video. It's about 3.5 minutes long, and it's a walkthrough of the site, of the group and the site. This was made for the first seminar. It's basically the same framework. Right? Under the schedule on the site, you'll see we have all the groups. We have the assignment template in Word format, and we have it in PDF. Right? And for week 1, we've already asked you to do introductions, and most of you have. And we have a new post up for you to respond to, and we're asking that you complete that over the weekend. Then we have taking stock of existing OER for your course. Click on that, and you have all the explanations and what we'd like for you from you, and we have links to resources, and we have deadlines. Okay? We think almost everything you need is on the site, and if you can't find us, just reach out, please. All right? And on the group. We're seeing some great posts already. We had great discussions in the first seminar. Wynn and I will take turns responding to discussion posts. We'll probably do group responses. And at the end of the seminar, within a couple of weeks, we will comment on all 3 of the assignments that you submitted so that you have that feedback. Someone who took the first seminar recently commented that she found it short, sweet, and inspiring. And we're hoping that you find this 3-week session with us also short, sweet, and inspiring. And we're happy to have the usual contention, the arguments, all of the things that make academia vibrant, because we don't believe the same things, because we are passionate about our disciplines and our students and our values. And we ask that you just be respectful and appreciative of each other and of us. And we certainly feel that way about you. Wynn, do you want to wrap up?
Sorry, I was writing back to Kate in the chat. I'll just address your question live. If you're just attending live sessions but not submitting assignments and so forth, we did assign you all to a group. So if we want to do breakout rooms or anything during the live meetings, we can send you to a group to collaborate with. We got started today. There's a lot to digest here, so I encourage you to check out some of the additional resources that we posted in the assignment and the schedule that Gina just showed you. For this week, I think it's about getting connected and just thinking through what's possible. And then we'll dig into some other strategies next week. But this seems like a great group, and so we look forward to the next 20 days together.
All right.
All right.
Any final questions?
Actually, I have a quick question. I just wanted to clarify. So the assignments for today was the introduction, then for the 22nd is another discussion post, response to the discussion post by the 25th, and there's an assignment due on the 25th. And you said on the forum, and I see that now, there's one more post that's the 5 R's in Open Pedagogy, and that's for the 23rd. Am I getting that right? I just want to make sure I have it all written down.
Thanks for asking. There's a discussion post due this Friday. This is the only week that we have 2 discussion posts because we want that introduction to come in so you know each other. And then Sunday, you have the assignment due, and you'll post that to the library. There's folders there already for you. And we ask that by Monday, you make responses to your group. Right? Your groups are fairly small. We're not asking you to respond to every single person. You'll see this in the instructions. So there's really only 3 things you have to do. The assignment's the major one. And the discussion post, we like you to keep to about 200 words. So we're trying to keep the writing short.
Sorry, the Friday assignment, where can I find that again?
On the forum.
Let me put it back up. I just closed it, but no problem. Let me put it up.
Okay.
So you have this, there's kind of 3 places where you're participating. You've got the forum, right? And that's where you did introductions.
Yeah.
And then I just posted the new question up here a couple hours ago, right? So you'd go to your group and click into it, and then you can, submit your post. If you go down here, you can click on reply, right? And just post something, or you can type it down here. The assignment, which is our assignment to you, is to create an assignment. Sorry, I think that's what you're asking about. Sorry, Erica. You can find the template here. Yeah.
Yeah, the 25th. I see like going to the actual discussion and assignments page on the website you showed us. It says 2 assignments. I want to know about this 3rd assignment on Friday, or is that the 25th, or am I going like crazy?
So the 3 pieces are right. 1, do your discussion post that we just looked at, 5 R's in Open Pedagogy. Part 2 of that is respond to 2 colleagues in your group. And then 3 is develop this assignment.
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh, okay, got it. Sorry, I thought I was looking for a 3rd assignment. I couldn't find it, but yes, I see all of that. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So if you have more questions, feel free to reach out to us. We know this is a little different. Most of you haven't used the Commons or the Commons this way. It is a group that allows us to have more private discussions, and then we share the site, so we have the resources that are common to everyone, right? And that stays fairly static.
And I also want to put out there that it's an open access platform, and that's part of why we're using it too. It's not behind the Blackboard board.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you.